We are meeting today under some great circumstances because we are doing more spring things in the garden. Early spring garden chores kind of feel like, well, work. Can feel a little to get out there because it's not really the fun stuff of the planting and adding color at this stage. Instead, we're trying to get rid of the winter drab and get our gardens prepped for all of that good stuff, all the planting that is to come. But instead of thinking of all the things we're about to do as work, I instead like to think of them as garden beautification because we're getting rid of dead foliage. We are trimming and doing some pruning and that type of stuff. Pruning, weeding, all of these things happen throughout the gardening season. But of course, right now is when we're beginning, and it is a little and a little, yes, it's springtime. Hi, you guys. This is Nicole from My Carolina Garden. My garden is located in growing zone 8B, and I am in southeastern North Carolina. So let's get this camera turned around and show you the things we're doing today. So far, I have done a little bit of garden beautification with you. Like I set up my blue bench and had a little vignette set up. I potted up some of my cold tolerant first plants and things like that. So this part looks pretty decent. Now behind it, off camera one day, I kind of took my wisteria vines and made them a little less wonky so they were more attached to their trellis and less attached to the fence. Now I know some people have fears about owning wisteria. Totally fine, but I do want to point out every single time I show my wisteria that mine is the Amethyst Falls, and that is not known to be invasive. Like if you go into the woods and go picking out some wisteria to add to your garden because you think, well, it's free, I want this, you might be sorry, because free isn't always great. But the Amethyst Falls I've had in my yard for about 8 years now. And mainly where I show it to you is on my opposite side of my backyard in my rock garden, and I have it on each side of my privacy screens. So I had done a lot of work trimming off some dead branches of my wisteria before, and as I said, I've had this for a solid 8 years. I have not had it strangle my plants. The worst part of it is maybe it gets more wisps than you would want it to, which you can cut back. But like I said, it hasn't done any damage to any of my other plants. I have no problems with it whatsoever. And I actually was able to take some of the pieces that were growing, had roots from over here, and that's what I used on the opposite side of the yard where we started. Now, another thing that I did was I repainted my little piece of surfboard decor. That was just made with some scrap wood that we had, and my son actually put it together just for a little bit of fun. But it was fading out after a few years of being out in the garden, so I repainted that. Now, here's some of the stuff that you probably have to do, and it's time for me to do it as well. First of all, our daylilies with all of their dead foliage. This job is so satisfying, because it is time to pull this dead foliage out of here. Now, we had been waiting basically until late winter, early spring to get that foliage out because we wanted to make sure that the new foliage was going to be protected. Well, clearly the new foliage is up so high now, it doesn't need that protection anymore. So we'll be clearing out that dead foliage. In contrast, I have right here, it's a cordyline. It's the kind that stays red. Here we can see some fresh red growth coming out of here. I know it's not perennial everywhere, but it is perennial here. Now, if I wanted to take some of this dead foliage off of here, I could do that, but I am trying to show you how easy it can be, except a few of these have not been so easy to pull. You can see this dead foliage is doing nothing for us. It's not going to turn red again this year. It does have to come off. However, because this new red growth is fresh and more tender, I want it to still be protected at this point. So I am leaving this brown foliage on here for now until I know our threat of 30-something degree temperatures is over. So over on this side, I have another daylily, and I'm going to do the same thing, remove that foliage. But for a totally different project that we're going to do, right over here, is where we are going to trim back our ornamental grasses. This is something we were also waiting to do because we really wanted to make sure that our fresh growth wasn't going to get damaged by colder temperatures. So we were waiting till late winter, early spring to trim these back. So these are actually zebra grasses, not that you can tell that right here. And you can see my fresh green growth is starting to show up underneath there. And actually I have some off to the side right there. I don't want to cut that back, and so I'm going to see how tall that green growth is, which looks like maybe it's 6 inches or so. And I'm going to trim my grasses with my hedge trimmer all the way down to where that new green growth is showing. And I'm going to do the same thing on this guy over here as well. All the brown. This is my golden sword yucca. We need to get this brown foliage out of here. And I have a hosta that has just been secretly hiding back there. He needs his foliage pulled off too. And this is another satisfying one because you can see that the hosta is starting to get its little nubs coming out of the ground. So once you clear off all this gross dead foliage and see these new little signs of life, that's like where it becomes super duper exciting. So let's get going on these jobs first, and then we'll move on into the front yard. As I was raking underneath my big leaf hydrangea over here, I noticed that I have a lot of dead branches. Now, if you have a southern garden that went through 2025, you may have problems with your hydrangeas too. We had a July entire month where it was oppressively hot with no rain, but it was severely humid. I had so many issues, and with the hydrangea specifically, I had black spot badly. So it's a fungal disease, and I had a lot of leaf drop and all that kind of stuff, which is why I was just getting these leaves out of here too. It really took a toll on my hydrangeas. I think gardeners in the north had a wonderful hydrangea year, and it was like, oh, look at this awesome show I have. And here we were really suffering. So I'm actually going to do some trimming back of some of these branches that I can tell are definitely dead. And the way that I can tell that now is because I have buds on my newer branches. Let me show you up close what I mean. So if I see a branch that has, obviously this one is already an opening up bud, but a bud like these, then I know that this branch is still alive. But in comparison, branches that are a lighter color here, I can tell that this is absolutely dead. So I have a whole bunch of those lighter colored bits of wood in here with no buds at all, and then my darker wood, the darker brown, is all budded up. So all I'm going to do now is clip back the things that are definitely dead, because this guy obviously is already setting buds and is going to be a bloomer. I can see where the buds are, and those dead branches are not going to do me any good at all. So let me trim those back. It really stinks because it looks like I lost a good 50% of my plant, but I also don't want to cry about it because I have propagated this into, I don't know, at least 5 other plants. And the way that I propagate my hydrangeas is by taking a low-lying branch, burying it under the soil and letting it root under there. And then after it gets roots established, you can clip it from the parent plant and then move it to wherever you want. So I do have a bunch of guys that I had from this main plant, so I feel okay about that. Outside of that, it's wonderful to get rid of some of this brown foliage, even though I did, of course, like the wispiness of the ornamental grasses. And speaking of the ornamental grasses, we are going to pop into the front yard and do the same thing in the peninsula garden. The back line of my peninsula garden is 3 of these huge grasses, so it will look different when I cut them down, but it is for the best. So incidentally, since we're doing all this pruning, I did want to remind you that I did a whole video completely dedicated to pruning times, what to prune when, etc. And so like our ornamental grasses were waiting a little longer than some other things that we've already shaped up. Go back and check that out because I think there's a lot of valuable information in there. And it's funny, now that I'm up in the peninsula garden, my intention was just to do these grasses. And now I see so much other dead foliage around me that I wish I had more time to tackle all of this. But alas, that will be a project for another day. Hopefully this was helpful, or kind of at least fun to get into the garden for some early spring stuff. And as I said, figuring out when to prune and when we can pull back our dead foliage and that kind of stuff. Follow me on social media for more garden inspiration and kind of more fun stuff and not just the work stuff. And until next time, you guys, happy planting.